For more on this, let's bring in political analyst Keith Leslie. Keith, this report is scathing. Will it have any impact on Ford's Ontario Place plans, do you think?
It's doubtful at this point, Matt. They're just too far down the road with this whole redevelopment of Ontario Place and moving the Science Centre along. If you remember, the previous Auditor General issued a report into the Greenbelt scandal that prompted the government to reverse course on the Greenbelt lands, to a cabinet minister resigned, and the RCMP launched an investigation. Despite the scathing language in today's report, I don't think it's going to result in anything close to what that previous report did into the Greenbelt scandal.
What do you think about the soaring costs, though? Do you think that could impact even the way this all rolls out?
Well, it's certainly more ammunition for the people who are opposed to the government's plans. I mean, the government clearly went into this, the Auditor General said, without even knowing the full cost of what it was going to cost taxpayers for this Ontario Place redevelopment. That's not good decision-making. That's really bad decision-making, fiscally especially. And yet we have a Conservative government that's probably going to ride this out. They're not going to reverse course.
Okay, on closing supervised drug consumption sites, why wouldn't the government have done any proper planning or any needs-based assessment? Do you think that we need to conclude this was a political decision?
Well, you heard the health minister today. She said, you know, she talked to restaurateurs and businesses, and they don't like seeing the used needles and the paraphernalia all around their places. So that's the health minister talking about the business impact of the safe injection or supervised injection sites, not the health aspects of it. So it's quite surprising to see this government going down that road, but they're not going to back down. They're going to stick with this. It's just like the bike lanes. It's a populist move, and so they're going to do it despite the fact that there's no real evidence. Well, there's evidence to the contrary in the case of the supervised injection sites that they do save lives, but a populist move, Doug Ford's going to embrace it, and that's going to be the end of these as far as he can. You know, they've got an alternative plan to get them directed into help, but there's no help available at this point.
All right, also in this report, the pro-Ontario advertising. Now, critics have said they seem partisan. The AG seems to agree. What do you think?
Oh, she's bang on here. About 2/3 of the $103 million spent on government advertising, the most by any Ontario government ever, about 2/3 of those ads were basically blatantly to support the views of the Progressive Conservative Party as a good, strong governing party for us. So that's not, they wouldn't have passed the previous checks that used to be in place for government advertising, but this is the Ford government promoting itself every last way it can, especially in advance of an expected snap election next spring.
Well, and that's a really good point. I want to talk about the election. We've certainly had a number of chats that we expect there will be an election called in the new year. Do you think what we're learning today about Ontario Place, the supervised drug consumption sites, the ads, do you think any of that hurts Ford's chances at the ballot box next year?
Well, it should a little bit, but for the most part, as long as the New Democrats and Liberals continue to split the center and center-left vote, Ford's Conservatives are going to coast in at over 40%, and they're going to be able to get another majority government unless something drastically changes with the opposition parties.
All right, that's political analyst Keith Leslie. Keith, thanks as always.
Thanks for having me.